So I was with my buddy one day, and we were out walking. It rains a lot in the rainy season in Norway, and because very little of Norway is flat, it's very hilly. And we were up walking up a sidewalk one day, and my buddy decided he saw this hill, and it looked slippery. It looked like grass. He thought, hey, he was a skier from Wisconsin, and he thought, I'm going to try to see if I can't ski on my feet there. Well, as he started down the hill, his feet slipped out from under him, and he went off the grass, and he went into the mud trail, and it was about a 75-yard long hill down. He couldn't stop. He was rolling end over end, sliding down through the mud, and when he finally got to the bottom, he was covered from head to toe in mud. Now, one other time that we had, what's so amazing, Norwegian kids love athletics. They play hockey. They love to do ski jumping. They do cross-country skiing. They have a saying in Norway, which is Norske barn er født med ski på beinen, which means Norwegian children are born with skis on their feet. And they ski from the time they're little. And what's wonderful is that in the wintertime, they just go outside, throw their skis down. They don't plow the streets. They just pack them down, throw their cross-country skis on, and off they go. In fact, here in the States, a lot of cross-country skiers call it telemarking. And Telemark is actually a county in Norway. And so we were in a subdivision one night, and they have these small little 10-meter ski jumps. They're a heck of a lot bigger than I ever would have thought about getting on. But you see these little 4- and 5-year-old kids climb up the ladder, carrying their skis, get on top, put their skis on, come down this 10-meter jump, and off and down the hill they'd go. Well, it was a steep hill. It was a big hill. I was standing there one night, and in those days we were carrying a briefcase with us. And I was standing at the top of the hill, and so many kids had been up and down this hill that I didn't realize it had become hard and was ice and was packed. And as I was standing at the top of the hill, waiting for our train to come, my feet flipped out from under me. I don't know how in the world it happened, but I landed seat down on my briefcase, which became like a toboggan, and I shot down that hill like I'd been shot out of a gun, and I caught a bump, threw me off, blew my briefcase open. Everything I had in it went flying, and I just sat there and laughed my head off. Had a great time. And so that was just one of the experiences I had that, made me chuckle and laugh. When it comes to culture shocks, the one that really surprised me to begin off, I like to be gregarious. I enjoy talking to people. And the Norwegians are very reserved. And it is not very kosher to publicly acknowledge people on the street. Where we would walk down the street and we'd see, even if you don't know someone, and say, hi, how are you? It's a beautiful day. Have a good day. You would never do that in Norway because they would think that you were absolutely uncultured to be so rude as to talk to them when you didn't know them. That took a while for me to get used to, even on things like public transportation, a bus, a train, a subway. They were the most quiet that you could ever imagine because everyone would get on the bus, sit down, and no one was speaking to each other. It's not that they were being rude or being unkind, but they felt it was rude to try to strike up a conversation with someone that you do not know. And for me, that was a bit of a challenge because I was surprised at that. And at first I wondered, are these people very closed? I quickly found out that was not the case. It's just the norm of their society. And once you get to know them, they are friendly, loving, warm, accepting, great people. I love the people of Norway for many reasons, but probably the most prominent for me is they are kind, good people. They're very private. They like to keep to themselves. They don't go out of their way to bother their neighbors. In fact, they think it's quite rude to bother your neighbor. But once you get to know the Norwegians and can get into their inner circle, they are the warmest, most wonderful, loving people that I have ever met. Great people. It was fun to be able to eat Norwegian food on a regular basis because in many ways it is so different from what we have here in the United States. I hadn't eaten a lot of fish before I left and lived there. But living there, we ate fish nearly every day. And in most of the cities where we lived, we were right on the coast. And so we could go down to the fish market right at the port, and the fishermen would come in every day with their fresh catches. And we could go into the fish market and purchase fresh fish. What we really loved to do was to go and get, when the shrimpers came in, we'd go in and buy a bag of freshly cooked shrimp, and we'd take them out next to the water at the port. We'd peel them, throw the shells into the water. The seagulls would come down and get them and take them off. We'd have a fresh loaf of bread. We'd cut it, put our shrimp on the slice of bread, cover it with Norwegian squeeze mayonnaise, and just enjoy that fresh shrimp and bread right there next to the beautiful fjords and the waterways and the coastlines of Norway. Also, the other thing that I really liked about Norwegian food were the sweets. They have wonderful sweets. Chocolate, chocolate, some of the best in the world. Freya was the most common brand. We loved to eat what were called firkløvers or four-leaf clover chocolate bars. They were phenomenal. You could get them with nuts in them. You could get them plain. The chocolate was excellent. You could walk down the street and there'd be these little kiosks along the way, and step there. They'd be no bigger than a small trailer, and you could buy any kind of chocolate or sweet that you wanted in there. Their pastries were phenomenal. The other thing that was really delicious were their hot dogs. Actually pulser, but it's not hot dog like we have. They had 50 different types of hot dogs you could get. Some of them you'd boil, some of them you would fry, but they were all wonderfully delicious. And more often than not, we didn't eat them with a bun. You would eat them with eggs, or you'd eat them with potatoes as a main part of your meal. And it was wonderful. I really enjoyed it. Also, there was lots of fresh dairy. Milk was abundantly available. So were eggs, to be able to have eggs. We ate lots of potatoes, whether we had them boiled or baked. Generally, it was boiled and then peeled, and we'd put gravy on them and have them with fish. But that was really very good. Some of the foods I never could get used to were some of the favorites that the old Norwegians really love is good old lutefisk. Lutefisk, which is cod that has been soaked in a lye bath. And when it comes out, it is gelatinous and it's opaque. And it didn't matter how many times I tried to enjoy that, it just did not hit my palate very well. But the Norwegians loved it. Or we could get rack of lamb that they call pinnekjøtt, which was excellent. Loved to be able to get that and eat it and enjoy it when we could. Sausages were available. They were also very, very delicious. But their food is very plain, very common. They don't have a lot of real fancy dishes. They don't use an awful lot of spices, but the food was good. And one thing you'll notice when you meet Norwegians, they are some of the most healthy people in the whole world. They are surprisingly tall, slim, trim, athletic for the most part, and fun people to be around. I am sure that in the U.S. we can find authentic Norwegian food. Even here in Salt Lake City, around the Den 17. Mai celebration, which was last Saturday, the Norwegians get together and they'll cook up their genuine food. If you go up into Minnesota, in the Michigan area where lots of Norwegians immigrated to and lived, you can get genuine Norwegian food here. For me, what I love to do, one item that I really enjoy is Norwegian brunost, or brown cheese. It's a goat cheese. It's like thick peanut butter. And thank goodness in our local stores, they've started carrying what is a brand called Ski Queen, that is brown cheese, brunost, that is phenomenal to be able to eat. And I make sure I always have a package of it in my fridge. Learning to speak Norwegian was a challenge for me. What I have found is the quickest and easiest way to learn a foreign language is to live among the people and hear them as they speak their language. I did go through a couple of months of training before I left, but when I got to Norway, I found that I didn't understand hardly a word of what they were saying. They spoke much faster than what I was prepared for. Also, just like here, there are different dialects. Depending on where you're from, we'll have a different dialect in how you speak and the words that you use. For example, in Oslo, they have the most beautiful sing-songy way of speaking, and they enunciate their words very specifically and very in a staccato way. And I loved listening to those who were from Oslo and the Oslo Fjord area speaking Norwegian. And then if you were from northern Norway, the northern Norwegians spoke more of a drawn-out type. And in fact, for we as Americans, the way we speak, we don't speak with nearly as much sing-song as a lot of Norwegians do. We're more flat in the way we speak. And so once I finally learned how to speak Norwegian, I felt it a great compliment when people would ask me, what part of North Norway are you from? Then when you get down into communities like Bergen, Bergen has its own accent, and they are so proud of their accent and the way they speak. And I loved listening to the people from Bergen speak. Trondheim had its own specific dialect. Kristiansand down on the south had another dialect. But what I found is once I was immersed into the culture, was speaking with people every day, it took me about 6 months, and I felt comfortable. I could have conversations, I could carry on, I could discuss with all of the people normal everyday activities. I was able, if you got into nuclear physics, I couldn't talk about that, but I could talk about normal everyday communication, how to get to the store, how's your day, what's going on in your family, what's happening in town, how's work going. Those kind of conversations became very common for me. And after about 6 months, I found that my thinking went from speaking English to speaking Norwegian. And I knew that I was assimilated and really prepared and doing well when I started dreaming in Norwegian. And so it was fun. I would find myself at times speaking with Norwegians and carrying on a conversation and thinking to myself in my head, I can't believe this. I am actually speaking Norwegian with Norwegians, and they can understand me, and I can understand them, and we're communicating. One more item that's really important about learning a foreign language, and for me in learning Norwegian, is making sure that you know how to read in the language. And I spend a lot of time, and still do now, even after all these years, I regularly read Norwegian newspapers, and I'll read Norwegian books. And because I can pull up so many videos on YouTube from Norway with Norwegians, I'm able to listen and hear the language. But it's important that you know how to read it so that you can recognize it. Reading, once you have it in your brain, when you go back later and you read, it reminds you of words that cognitively you had forgotten about. And you go, oh yeah, that's right. That's the word for this. That's the word for this. And reading is a very good way to maintain a foreign language. When it comes to using the language and sometimes making a mistake, they told us when we were learning Norwegian that because of so many similarities with English, that if you get in a bind and you're not sure what the Norwegian word is, then say the English word, but do it with the Norwegian accent. Now, I'm telling you, that's not the best way to do it. I was one day speaking with a Norwegian early on in the country, and we were visiting with them, and I asked him, I said, hey, can we come back later and visit with you? And I knew how to say, kan vi få komma tillbaka, which means, can we come back? And I wanted to say later, but the word in Norwegian is senere. Kan vi få komma tillbaka senere? And I couldn't remember that word, so I thought, well, the word in English is later, so I'll say that with the Norwegian accent. So I said, kan vi få komma tillbaka later? And they looked at me and started to laugh. And I didn't realize till after that I had said, hey, can we come back later laughing? And the person I was with said, my buddy said, that's the wrong word. Don't use that word for it. Or there was a trick we used to play when we'd be with an American who was new, who didn't know Norwegian well. The first thing we'd do is take him to a chocolate kiosk, and we'd walk up to it, and we'd grab him and say, hey, you got to be careful. This guy likes to give us a bad time. And so when you go in, you're going to ask him, you're going to say, I want det. Jeg ønsker det. And he's going to try to sell you detta. Now, what that means is you're going to go up and say, I want that. And he's going to point at it and say this. But you don't want that. And they're not thinking of what you're telling them because they're so new to the language. And the guy's just trying to mess with you. You don't want detta, you want de. So you just tell him, no, I want de. And then we sit back and laugh because the poor shop owner, he's getting frustrated. And then when he sees us laughing, he understands and knows what we're doing. Then he starts to laugh too. And then the person who doesn't know Norwegian well feels uncomfortable, and we have a good time and move on. But yeah, there are times when you can say things that you think you are saying correctly and it's wrong, but that's just normal. Before you know it, you'll be helping others to be able to learn the language also. The Norwegian language in Scandinavia, you've got Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish as the main ones. You've got Finland, but Finland is nothing similar. Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish are all very similar languages. The difference being, Norwegians, they speak for the most part in the sing-song manner like this. The Swedes, on the other hand, and there are some words that are different between the languages, but for the most part, they all understand each other, except the Swedes sing very high up and down, and then the Danes, they're flat. The Danes, like the Norwegians say, the Danes speak like they have a potato stuck in their throat. But the three languages are all intertwined, and they understand each other. Norwegians probably understand both languages the best. The Swedes and the Danes like to give each other a bad time that they can't understand each other, but they really do. But the languages, they're fun, they're beautiful, and they're enjoyable to speak. Some additional items I would just tell you about Norway is they are known for two really important items. One is hydroelectric power. There's a lot of water in Norway. Some of the most beautiful waterfalls you'll ever see are in Norway. And they have a lot of hydroelectric power. They generate a lot of electricity for the region. They're also one of the largest oil fields in the world with the North Sea oil. And they're very concerned about how they get that oil and how they take care of the resources around them in the environment. Even though they're one of the biggest producers of oil in the world, they're also very concerned about the environment and what they're doing to it. The Norwegian government will subsidize the purchase of an electric vehicle. And so I've never seen so many Teslas in one place as I saw in Norway. They were on every corner, and you'd usually see them 2 and 3 in a row at a time. The Norwegians own a lot of Teslas. But They are very concerned about the environment and how they're taking care of the natural resources that they have, and they're wise about the way they use them. They love holidays, especially Christmas. Christmas is not just Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. They have multiple days in which they celebrate Christmas, and it goes for 3 or 4 days. Lots of family gatherings, lots of getting together, having food, enjoying each other's company, and giving each other presents. And the little children get so excited, looking forward to the Julenisens who are going to come, and if they've been good, bringing them presents, and also the concern they have if they're not good of what the Julenissen might do to them. And that was a fun tradition to be able to be a part of. The other thing that they do, they are so proud of their Norwegian Independence Day, which is the 17th of May. I had an opportunity to be there on 2 separate 17th of May, Den 17. Mai, and they were phenomenal. They stand up every bit as big and powerful as our 4th of July celebrations are here in the States. The thing that added extra fun and excitement to it for me was that each individual city, valley, district, region has their own cultural costume that represents where they're from. The women wear what are called bunads, and they are the most lavishly decorated dresses. And there is a style for the area in which they are raised in, and they are proud to wear the bunad from where they were born. And then on top of that, they have this elaborate silver work that is done by the silversmiths that they wear across their chests on these beautiful dresses. The men, they wear their Norwegian sweaters, which are knit in the style of the area where they're from. And then they get together and they all carry Norwegian flags, and you go down to the parade, and each one of the schools, the junior highs, the high schools, they come through the parade and they're dressed up in their costumes and they're wearing their hats, whether they're red or blue, that represent their school, and the bands are playing, and there's a million Norwegian flags flying. It's a lot of fun. There's great meals, great ice cream, and activities that take place on Den 17. Mai. There are several differences between life in Norway and here in the United States. First of all, they get to deal with different types of winter than we do here along the Intermountain West. Winter in Norway is long and cold, and it's dark. Because of the midnight sun in the summer, you get the all-day dark in the wintertime. And so the humidity is very high, and when the temperatures get cold, it gets freezing cold. And the snow depths are amazing. I've never seen so much snow in all my life as I saw in Norway, and have many fond memories of walking down the streets with snow piled up 6-7 feet high along the edges of the roads. The other thing that's different about food in Norway is that where we eat an awful lot of beef here in the United States, beef was less common in Norway, and it was predominantly fish. We ate a tremendous amount of fish, being so close to the ocean. It was always fresh and delicious, but beef was in short supply because generally what we would eat that was meat was oxen. Also, the other thing that is really quite different about their food, we have bread that is baked in a bakery and then sliced in a machine and comes in a bag, and it's very light and airy. Norwegian bread is the best in the world. It's thick. It has a thick crust. It's heavy. It's wonderful. You pick it up fresh every day from the bakery. It comes as a full loaf, and you take it home and slice it and put whatever spread and topping you want to put on. It's the best bread in the whole world. What's also different about life in Norway versus here in the U.S., at least for me, was public transportation is such a vital part of how they get around. Having a car is good, but it's not necessary to get any place you want to go. The buses run regularly. And when I say regularly, at many of the stops, a bus comes every 10 minutes. Trains are regular, and they take you exactly where you want to go. And as soon as you get off the train, you can pick up a bus, you can get a taxi, and depending on which city you're in, you can even go and catch a subway to get where you need to go. We found it very easy to get around. Did not have a car for 2 years while I was there. Never had a problem getting anywhere I needed to go because the transportation system was so well run and so abundant for our use. The other thing that's different about life in Norway is that where we can go find a large grocery store and get everything that we need at a single stop, in Norway, though they do have some larger grocery stores, for the most part, you go to the corner market and you pick up your items at a specialty store. You may get meat at one location, bread in another location, then go and get your milk and your yogurt at the small little corner markets that are in every neighborhood. Makes it really very quaint and nice to get to know everybody who's in the local market, and they know you, and it's just a short walk from your house to be able to get there. The differences in housing in Norway, where it's so really important for people here to have their own home, in Norway, there are plenty of families that own their own homes, but there are also a very large part of the population that lives in apartment buildings, or what they call blocks. And you can see them everywhere, especially in the larger cities, where they're 15, 16-story tall apartment complexes. And as you come out of the elevator on each floor, each family has their name on the front entrance to their apartment. And their apartments are well furnished and meet their needs. But when you find the homes are generally older, well-kept homes. And the thing that impressed me the most is just about every single family home had a mother or father, a grandparent apartment that was in the house, because the Norwegians are very good at taking care of their elderly people. When grandma or grandpa gets old and can't take care of themselves, it's always the case that the family will take them in and they will come and live with one of their sons or their daughters and their family, and the family accepts them in and loves them and takes care of them and provides for their needs, has a bedroom for them, and it's really very nice. It was one thing I really enjoyed about being there. The yards are much smaller than what we're used to. But the thing about Norway that is so beautiful, in most every community that you're in the middle of a forest. Except the biggest cities where downtown is like any other metropolitan area. But not far out of the city center, you'll be in a wooded area, and the homes are intermingled and sparsely placed out among these beautiful wooded areas that are full of nature. Some additional differences between life in Norway and life in the United States. We find ourselves here in the States being very wrapped up in our work. And it's difficult for us to take time to go on vacation. And when we do go on vacation, we usually spend most of our time thinking about the work we're not getting taken care of at home. That is not the case in Norway. Norwegians take their vacations very seriously. They usually own a hytte or a cabin that's out in the country or up in the mountains or down by the ocean, and they love to go to their hyttes and spend time. They'll spend lots of weekends there. During the summers, when the weather is good, which is very short and it's very temperate in Norway, it's normal that for a few weeks in the summer it averages in the 70s. It's very comfortable. They'll take off and go for 2 or 3 weeks on what they call ferie, and a lot of times they'll leave the country and they'll head and visit other parts of Europe or other parts of Scandinavia. For many Norwegians in the winter when it's cold, especially when they retire, they like to go down to the Canary Islands or to the Majorcas and spend where it's warm and then come back in the summertime. But the Norwegians take vacation very seriously. They work hard when they're working, and they know how to have fun and relax when they're taking time away from work, and it's very important to them. One thing I'd like to say is, especially for those of you that haven't been to Norway, when we think about here in the US traveling to Europe, we think of going to London and to Paris and to Madrid and Munich, and those are all wonderful places to go. Seldom do we ever think about going to Norway. But I want to assure you that if you ever have any desire to meet the most wonderful people in the whole world, it would be to go to Norway. They are kind and loving and gentle people. They live a peaceful life. They work hard, they love their families, and they want to be left alone. They don't want to be bothered. They don't want the world problems. But one thing about the Norwegians, if there is a problem anywhere in the world, they'll be one of the first to jump in and to help. They are kind, considerate, charitable people. They have a very high standard of living, and they are not afraid to share in the wealth that they have. And they're very good about concern for other people. They let a lot of people move into their country, and they share what they have. Jag är mycket tacknämlig för anledning. Jag har haft att bo med de mest hyggliga folket som bor här på jorden. Norska människor är fina människor och prövar att göra det bästa de kan och vara goda människor. Och jag är glad att ha känt så många norska folk. Tusen tack.